Rise of Industry Tips. These are tips that I created from playing the video game Rise of Industry. This is an excellent game, by the way. I'm just going to get right into it. It's going to be divided by industries, warehouses, trains, etc. Some industries do not create pollution, such as lumber. They can place in or near towns to deliver goods to promote town growth. So what I do at the start of the game is I go to the towns that I want to target and I build the lumber mills and I just deliver the lumber directly into the town, and the same with the sand gatherer. Very easy to build. It's going to keep on generating money. It's going to expand the growth of the town, which means I'm going to be allowed to send them more goods as they grow into a larger town. Deliver the requested goods to the town, and it will grow, add more buildings, and demand more goods. The game I'm playing right now, the town has added a lot of buildings, and it's starting to get to the point where it's reaching my area. I have heard that in one of the modes that there's a red circle around the town, and if you build within the town, it reduces your reputation or makes it more difficult for you to sell to the town, but I haven't seen it in game. Use coastal tiles for coastal industries such as sand and fishing and boating. So the coastal tiles are limited in supply, so you don't want to build all your factories and warehouses over there. Save them for sand, for fishing, and for boat depots. Rename your warehouses and other buildings by the name of industries they provide or whatever the building is manufacturing. So, for example, where I have my breweries, I'll name the warehouse brewery so that I know immediately to send all the correct materials to that warehouse. And the reason why I'm doing it is because I'm doing transfers over long distances. When the game is paused, there should be an undo button allowing you to fix a mistake. I have not used it yet, but people say it's in there. Your dispatch cost increases over greater distance for trucks, trains, etc. So you have a zone, let's say it's 50 tiles and 100 tiles and 150 tiles. As you go over a greater distance, your dispatch cost increases, and it increases also depending on how many pieces of cargo you're carrying. It doesn't double, but it goes up by like 70%. You cannot always build on any tile if you don't have the right building permit. So you might see a message that says you don't have a building permit to build on a specific area. Unfortunately, I don't know how to get the building permit. You either got to research it through your tech tree or you have to go to your headquarters. You can flatten or alter terrain if you need to. So there's going to be situations like with a warehouse where you have to place the train depot and the Zeppelin depot and the boat depot right next to it, and the terrain might stop you from doing it, so you're going to have to flatten the terrain. I did it once and it was very easy to do. Industries. Build your polluting industries far from towns, farms, etc. because you don't want pollution. It'll reduce the production of your farms, for example. Group your industries together, such as farming, because they need common ingredients such as water. So if you're going to have a large supply of water distributed out to all your farms, probably want to build your farms next to each other. Send your final products to a warehouse solely for exporting, otherwise you will have many trucks driving long distances. So if you do one warehouse that exports all your finished products, you're going to be able to transport faster than if you have each industry transporting goods, because the industry trucks send less cargo than warehouse trucks do. Two different types of trucks. Industries do not use train, ships, or boats, so their truck trips should be as short as possible and use other transportation for long distances. For long distances, you want to use warehouses with trains, airships, and boats. Polluting industries at the edge of the map or map corner will pollute fewer tiles. So obviously, if you put the polluting industries in the middle of the map, you're going to pollute a greater area. But if you put it up in the corner, you're going to pollute far less material. You'll see as you start getting pollution, everything that could be off the map won't impact anything. When playing sandbox, increase productivity to 200% on key industries. So I haven't increased it to 200% on every industry, but I do for things like water and lumber and wheat. Avoid putting road access for industries on the main road. Try to build road access on side roads. So if you have like an industry, a factory, and you've got a main road, you probably want to build a side road, because if you don't, there's going to be traffic congestion on the main road, and all the through traffic is going to have trouble getting through. If they congest the side roads, it won't be as bad. Set your cycles higher to prevent warehouses from being full. So there's an option where you can take, for example, a truck for an industry, and you could set it to how much cargo it's going to pick up. It could pick up for one production cycle, or two production cycles, or three production cycles, or it could just pick up everything. I set them to pick up everything to keep the warehouses from being full. So every time you do that, it will pull out a maximum of 50 cargo units from your warehouse and put it in the factory, as opposed to two or three. Try to keep as many raw materials in your factory as possible to prevent warehouses from filling up. When your warehouses fill up, you'll either have to sell everything or store it in your factory. You have a lot of raw materials, sell them, or build new factories to process them. If your building is not properly connected to a road, it will not function. I had a pollution removal building, and I didn't notice it wasn't connected to the road, so it didn't remove the pollution. I just happened to rotate the map and notice it late in the game. If your factory produces multiple items, production stops as soon as one slot becomes full. So I'll use an example with cows. It produces leather, milk, and meat. If one of them is full, all the production is going to stop. Reserve coastal tiles for only sand, fishing, and boat depots. Warehouses. Warehouses should use rail, air, and boats to transport goods faster. I have trucks that are so heavily congested going into the warehouse, it's unbelievable how congested it is. Goods can't move in and out because there's no rail, air, or boat support from that warehouse, because I didn't know how to build the stations at the time. Use multiple methods of transporting goods. Some warehouses, I'm talking about rail, air, boats, and trucks. Some warehouses get full. Send the raw materials to factories. Send the finished products for export or for sale at a town. Create a warehouse just for importing, another just for exporting, and others for temporary storage. So my industries have a warehouse that's automatic. And then there's one for importing, which means that I send raw materials over a long distance, usually using rail, to those warehouses, and then it might distribute it to another warehouse that's nearby. Then I've got one for exporting in my industrial area. Anything that goes into that warehouse gets sold in a market somewhere. So if you've got two beer factories and they're making drinks that go to two different warehouses, I'll take those two drinks from the two warehouses, put them into my export warehouse, and then I only need to make one destination rule to make sure everything gets sold. And obviously it makes sure that your trains are transporting more cargo. It's more efficient. You don't want them sending one drink. You want them sending like 8 drinks at a time. You want a long train. Name your warehouses after the industry they provide for. So if you do like a lumber mill, I have a warehouse called Lumber, and it has all the carpentry related materials. So if I send cotton from the farm and it's got to go to carpentry, or if I sell leather from the farm, it's going to go to the right warehouse. It's going to go to the lumber warehouse for the carpentry. Usually you want to do it based on the name of the industry, like carpentry. Increase the tile range of your warehouses if they have problems with stock levels. So if you have stock problems, like there's not enough stock in a warehouse, it's not being used, increase the tile range. Or if you have too many that you don't want there, you could decrease the tile range. There's a button that says how many tiles the range is. I set them all to maximum right now. You can save money from building warehouses by selling directly from farms and industry. So if you don't want to build any warehouses, just have your farms sell directly. But remember, they can't transport as much cargo, so you're not going to make as much money from dispatching all those trucks. You can sell items in a warehouse if there's no more storage space. So sometimes if I run out of storage space, I'll go to the warehouse and I'll just sell a ton of items. Trains. If you have one train track cross another without a bridge, a train might take a track in the wrong direction, slowing down traffic. So I had two parallel tracks going to two different stations. All I did was cross the track, and I saw a train going the wrong way because it was the shortest route. And when he encountered another train, they both had to travel slowly to pass each other. So you want to make a little bridge. Try to make it so trains always drive either on the right or the left. Avoid mixing on the same map. Trains enter stations on the left with the default setting. Trains only carry enough cars for the cargo they carry. A long train carries more cargo than a short train. So if you see a short train, then it's not carrying any cargo. And if you see a long train, it's carrying a lot of cargo. Try to make train lines as straight and long as possible so building is easier. Obviously, you don't have to do this, but if you do it at the beginning of the game, it might be easier to build a good train network if you have the money or if you're playing in sandbox mode. Take the space into consideration for building a train station and air station when building a warehouse. So if you build a train station, I'm talking about the property, the tiles that you're building on. Because I built a warehouse, I didn't know I needed all that property, and most of my warehouses don't have room for the air station, but most of them do have a train station because I didn't know. Trains are fast and move significantly more cargo than trucks. So do the airships. Trains can carry goods to a town or to an exit point faster than trucks on a large map. You will need a warehouse to do it. Use trains to cover long distance to supply a warehouse, and then use trucks to move the final delivery. Roads. Be careful when laying one-way roads. So what happens is you cannot make a one-way connection through the map unless you have a two-way road somewhere. The way the game starts, there's a two-way road. If you go and delete it and put it a one-way road, it'll switch it back to a two-way road. You have to build the proper connection so that there's always a two-way road connecting all the towns. Otherwise, the game will fix it, because if you don't do it, then the trucks won't be able to go back and forth. Use bridges over roads to reduce traffic congestion, and use connections to allow the surface roads to cross the bridge. This is a great way to reduce traffic congestion. Busy warehouses can become very congested with traffic. Take this into account when planning roads. Make sure exiting traffic has multiple routes to leave. So if you leave a warehouse, there's 4 directions you can go: north, south, east, and west. One of them will return you into the warehouse, so make sure the other 3 take you in a direction away from the warehouse to reduce traffic instead of having just one way out. The same with going in. You probably would want 3 different ways for traffic to get in. Get them off the highways. Use gaps to create roads between buildings and dense areas. I also use the gaps to put the things that siphon the water out. And you can use them for roads, make little zigzag connections, leave a little bit of space, change the terrain, etc. If you build densely, you will have traffic congestion. That's just a fact. Build highways through dense areas. So build a superhighway going through the middle and then cross it with bridges and make it easy for vehicles to get around, and you'll have a lot less congestion. On some maps, you might need to build roads or bridges to connect isolated towns or an export location. So I had a map where I wanted to export to state, but there was no road connection. And I had to build a road and a bridge to the town, and I had to find where the export point was. I had to find the town and look where it was exiting the map and then build a connection to that town. Dirt roads are very slow compared to paved roads. They work, but they're slow. And sometimes it's going to be an advantage if you can take a shortcut. Heavy road traffic can cause pollution, which you might not be able to remove. You can build all two-way roads or build a one-way road system similar to large cities like Manhattan. In Manhattan, you can only go one way on virtually every road. So you could do the same thing when you go through your industry, make a one-way road system. You'll have to decide on your own. I'm going to test it out, but I haven't tested it yet. Finances. If you think you might go bankrupt, sell some of your inventory to prevent defaulting on your loans or sell some buildings. It worked. I saved myself just by selling inventory, and I was able to avoid bankruptcy multiple times. Bring in income by selling your most expensive inventory. They got tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 inventory. The higher tiers bring in more money. The career mode is difficult to make money and be profitable. Play sandbox. Not only will you enjoy the game, but it takes a long time to fill a large map. When I played the career mode, the normal gameplay mode, earning money was very difficult, and I'm an experienced game player. I've been playing video games since the 1970s. It was very, very difficult. So I switched to sandbox mode. I'm a lot happier. Try to build industries that will make short deliveries for a profit. An example might be lumber, or more complex industries might not produce anything and might bankrupt you. So lumber only has to go a short distance to get into a town if you build it near the town. But a complex industry such as furniture, you might need leather from the cow and wood from the lumberyard to go to an industry to make leather chair. And if you don't have all your resources delivered, you won't make any money and it could bankrupt you. So don't start with the complex businesses. Start with simple businesses where you can deliver very easily. For example, if you are far from the state export point, it's going to be more expensive to play the game. You want to build close to the state export. You build production in the center of the map, your dispatch costs will be cheaper. You build adjacent to the largest town, it will be easier to grow the town. Make sure roads connect all the towns. I had a map that didn't. Don't build anything that does not help make money. You can easily build industries that produce nothing. Same with research. Don't build industries that are unable to generate income until you can afford to. Start by building non-polluting industries that do not have complex resource chains, such as gathering resources, such as lumber or sand. They don't pollute, and they're not complex resource chains. We're talking about gathering resources. So if you start with those, you can start making money, and you won't have to worry about a resource running out somewhere. Trucks. Factory trucks carry one cargo unit. A warehouse truck carries 3 cargo units, but only goes to another warehouse, or it exports it or brings it to a town. The factory trucks pick up from the factory, and the warehouse trucks are dedicated to the warehouse. Dispatch cost takes distance into account. That's why you want to start in the middle of the map. Your dispatch cost will be cheaper for your industry. Trucks go faster on paved roads, slower on dirt roads. I don't know if the one-way roads are faster, and I haven't really seen them side by side. I've seen them use both lanes a few times, but in general, I haven't seen them reduce congestion by using both lanes. Busy warehouses suffer from traffic congestion. Traffic congestion creates pollution. I've seen it so busy that it can't remove any cargo because there's so much going in and not enough coming out to deal with the surplus. You can set factories to deliver more or less cargo by changing the number of delivery cycles, which we spoke about earlier. Okay, those are my tips for rise of industry. I have a lot more tips at my forum at cheapbooks.cc. I am the owner of cheapbooks.com. Go to Rise of Industry. We'll take a look at what's here. They only have one view because I just wrote them today. We can see I've got it started. I've got some popular answers to some popular questions. I just bought the game yesterday, and as I'm playing it, I'm going to add more tips. I'm going to add a guide, and I'm going to add tips on how the menus work and the interface and things like that. Obviously, you could go to the video game section on cheapbooks.cc. There's a lot of video games, and I've written. It's all the posts are really good. It's very informative. If you have any questions or comments, please post below.